If you have been failing your driving tests, I want to let you know that you're not alone on this journey. If you are new in the UK and you're still enjoying your driving or planning to drive, with your international driver's license, guys, you've got no much time. This is a wake-up call for you. And if you have passed your driving test, I'm sure you know how much of a big deal that is, in the UK. And today I want to share with you what my experience has been and give you 1 or 2 tips on how you can pass your driving test as well ASAP. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is the Olajumoke Egbola. If this is your first time on my channel, I want to say a warm welcome to you. If this is not your first time, you've liked, you've shared, you subscribed, you told a friend to subscribe, you've actually made a comment, guys, you're the realest deal, and I want to say thank you. I've not been here for a while and I really miss saying this, and I want to say thank you to everyone who has dropped the comments. I've read all of the comments, and I've tried to respond to as much as I could, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for finding this channel so good. Thank you for loving me and thank you for being here. On today's video, I want to share with you how your girl failed at driving tests severally. I don't want to mention the number of times right now, but you will get to know in a bit. While I moved to the UK, I started up my journey in the UK in Birmingham, and I was about to start driving and I had to get a driving instructor, because it looked like I had never driven before, because Birmingham is quite a big place and the roads are quite mighty, and so I was terrified, especially driving on the right hand side of the road. I was terrified, so I had to get an instructor where I paid £30 per hour. I'm sure it's gone up much more than that now, and then for about 5 times who put me through, this is how to do it, this is how to do it, and all of that. So first of all, if you haven't gotten your provisional driver's license, you need to Google it up and see how you can, apply and get your provisional driver's license right away. And, I told you before in one of my old videos that I was stopped by the police, and, I was glad that my international driver's license was valid and that was what I was driving with. And so when the day was, drawing closer for my international driver's license expiry, I began to put in pressure. I went to write my theory test. I studied for it. I kind of honestly underestimated the theory test and I paid dearly for it. I focused more on if the theory test has 2 sides, the part you read and the part where you are just clicking when you see danger or some funny stuff like that, and then I underestimated that part, and as a result I failed my first theory test. Wow. After so much preparation, I focused so much on the theory parts, and lo and behold, I failed my first theory test. I'm like, this is such a big disgrace. Such a... me. Because I was clicking the thing too fast, and then about 3 or 4 of it came out like, you have been disqualified because you clicked too fast. Is it not just to be clicking something? And I was doing it, and then the thing was telling me that I was too fast. I'm like, what? Anyway, that was how I failed the first theory test, and I had to go outside of where I stay because they don't have a theory test center where I stay. So I had to go outside. It was so devastating because I prepared so much. I prayed so much. I was like, let's go get it. Let's go get it. And it was such a test that I shouldn't have failed, but this is a warning to you guys. If you've not done your theory test, don't underestimate any aspect of it. Click. Don't be too forward, don't be too fast, don't be too slow. They just need a particular pace, and I just didn't get that pace, and that was it. And that really hit me so bad. And immediately I got home that day, I cried a river. And then I booked another test for the next week or so. And then I went this time around. I'm like, you embarrassed me the first time. I'm here to embarrass you. And when I got to the test center, you won't believe it. A woman who knew that I came last week to write the test, I think it's about 10 days interval or something like that that you leave, said, oh, you're here again. Some funny remark that showed that I've been there before and I failed. I was quite embarrassed. That was before the test. And I didn't let that, what's the big deal, And so I went in for the test this time with full determination that you disgraced me before. And so I wrote the test the second time and I passed my theory test. That was the first shocker for me, so I could fail. I thought that at some point in life, especially maybe when it comes to academics, there's some things that I'm past this, and it wasn't easy for me, breaking the news to my children that I failed. It was so embarrassing, but it was one of those things. I let them know that I failed because they saw it in my disposition that mommy didn't pass, and they couldn't really celebrate daddy's success because mommy was down. Oh my God, it wasn't my doing. I just didn't expect that I was going to fail, and so it caught me unawares. So that was that about my theory test and how I failed it once and I passed the second attempt. So this is a shout out to anyone who is planning to write our tests. Don't underestimate that second aspect where you are clicking things. Don't underestimate it, guys. So I started to pursue the journey after passing that one, because without you passing your theory test, you can't proceed to your real practical driving test. And so I started to pursue the process, of registering. And so we tried to get an instructor again. Getting instructors now is such a big deal. And we were hearing things like, we're going to give them months notice. We're going to be on their waiting list for months. And we're like, what the heck? Why can't we just go and do the test and use it as a mock test, like driving test, let us know what they really want and all of that. Meanwhile, I've heard several stories about how a lot of people have failed these tests. Wow. And that already gave me cold feet. Like, what's the big deal? I've been driving for how many years, guys? Even if you've been driving for 20 years in Nigeria, it's not the same way you are going to run it here to Paso. It's a whole different ball game entirely. And so I went in for the first one and said, okay, let's just use it as practical. Since we didn't get an instructor, the money we should have paid, to the instructor, let's go use it to do like a mock and see how it goes. And that's how your girl went on my first attempt. Now, that anything that involves people, you need prayers. Everything need prayers anyway. I actually got a good examiner. They're going to sit right beside you. I used my car actually. I made sure my car was in perfect shape and, met all the, requirements for your car to be used. So it's not compulsory that you use your instructor's car. If you have a car and it meets up the, requirements, then you're good to go. And so I got to the test center. I was quite nervous because of all the things that I heard. And the instructor asked me to make myself comfortable and all of that. And then he asked me the question. There's going to be a theoretical question first. And he asked me, how do you know that your brake is working? I'm like, if you step on it, it's firm, it's not wobbly. I've crammed that one, And so I did that. And then we started. He was quite a nice person, and then you have to do the 360, move your neck everywhere, move your neck. The aesthetics to passing is a lot, guys. And I didn't quite understand it at that point, and I did the test. The guy was quite nice. The examiner was quite nice. He was telling me, park here, stop here, until we went to a road I'd never been before and I goofed. Like, I was supposed to be on the left-hand side and I was on the right-hand side, and he had to say, oh, you need to move to this side. Even at that point, I didn't even know I had, failed because it was my first time. And, I didn't know that once your examiner takes action, that's like fail for you. And so there was another time he corrected me, but the overall, I didn't, quite feel like I had failed, so the driving test went on quite good. I did my best, I wasn't so particular about, You know, I didn't know what to expect really. So I just went ahead with it. And when we got back to the office, he said, unfortunately, you have failed. I'm like, okay, really? Okay, at least it's a mock, so I will do better the next time. And so before I left that place that very day, my results came. Like I already got the email telling me that I failed and all like that. I was like, really so quick, and my faults were all stated. I did this, I did that, you know. Okay, I took it in good faith that it was, you know, just to know what it's like, you know. And that was 62 pounds gone. And so we started again to say, okay, let's try again. Let me try it again and see. That was my second attempt, and I was much more prepared this time around, you know. But unfortunately, I didn't get a good examiner this time around. I went with it. The guy was just, you know, and then we started. I'm quite okay driving with the navigator, you know, with the, what's it called now, the navigator. And we started, he would tell me to stop, he would tell me to do this. And I thought I was actually doing a good job, at least for such a long time, until we got to a roundabout. If you're familiar with Nigeria, you will know that we hardly have roundabouts in Nigeria. We don't have those kind of roundabouts that you know that you give way, right of way to the people on your right, you give way, you look at their trafficator, you are watching their trafficator. Where's their trafficator or indicator, as they refer to it here, is, you know, your where it's pointing to you. There's some things you don't really pay attention to. And you know, when you drive as a Nigerian, it's bumper to bumper. You're almost entering yourselves. Here you have a particular amount of space you have to leave, you know, so you don't go and bumper to bumper the car ahead of you. And a lot of other things that I later found out that I got prepared for my second test, you know. So I was doing quite good, I assumed, you know, until we got to a junction. And then because of the experience of the first time where I failed, I didn't want such a thing to repeat itself. And so because this junction was a junction I'd never been before, a roundabout I'd never been before, I took my time to look who is going, who's, you know. And before you could say anything, the instructor, examiner had to say, can you move please? And I'm like, why did you have to speak? Because I knew then that if he spoke or corrected me or something, I'd failed. Oh my God, I was so upset. Like, I've been coming all the way. You've not told me I should move. Why did you have to tell me? I felt like he was just being, you know, mean, because I felt he didn't need to tell me to move. I wasn't going to sleep at that junction or that roundabout anyway. So why did you have to tell me to move? You know, I was just observing the road just not to make the same mistake I made the first time. And he had to tell me to move. I was so upset. Oh my God. And I saw him pressing their pad or whatever thing they all pressing it. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what have I done again? Because I kept monitoring his hand. Seeing him pressing the stuff, like, what is it? What have I done in my mind, you know? But the moment where he spoke and told me to move, I knew that was it. And I was so upset. At a point, I was tapping on my steering like, oh my God, oh my God. And that really affected the rest of my journey. I won't even tell you a lie, because I was already upset. I knew what that thing he said meant already. And, you know, it was like, what's the point anyway, trying to make it up to the end of the, you know, the tests, you know. So I was really upset. And I figured that he even noticed how upset I was. And so we kept going, and then he said, okay, so he's going to take off the navigator now, and he's going to instruct me to park somewhere. And, you know, I was just still trying to do my best, even though I'd lost hope at that time, you know. And he told me to park. It was pointing at a particular place, and I felt with that distance, it was too short for me to be able to park there, because there was a car right behind me, you know. And immediately I turned on my indicator. I saw him press that thing again. Oh my God. I'm like, what? Like, guy, can we just get back to your office? I'm really tired. I don't want to do this anymore, you know. And it wasn't just a fun ride for me. The examiner wasn't pleasant. You know, it just wasn't a good one. Honestly, I didn't feel comfortable like I did the first time, even though I didn't pass and I knew the reasons. But I felt that this, my second attempt, wasn't justifiable, and it really, really upset me. And so when we got to their office, and he said I should secure the car park and turn off the ignition and everything. And then he went about to say, so you didn't pass. I'm like, why exactly reason? Failed as a result of what? He said, you remember the time where I told you to move? I said, but did you have to tell me to move? Like all the other journeys, all the other roundabouts, were you the one telling me to move? Why did you have to speak? And then he knew that I was upset, and the Nigerian in me wanted to come out that day. Because I felt that it was just unjustifiable. I wasn't supposed to have failed that test. And then he said, you were not checking your blind spots, this, that. I wasn't ready to listen to anything. And you won't believe it. I sat in my car in their office, for like 20 minutes. I was crying like a baby, guys. I'm going to show you a video of myself crying. Really, really, really very upset, because I felt that I was failed unjustly. There was no reason for the guy to have failed me. There was absolutely no reason for him to have failed me on this test. The first one I did, I made major mistakes, and I understand. But this one, there were no major mistakes. He didn't need to have said anything. Telling me to move on at a junction. He didn't need to. So leave it. I called my husband. I was wailing on the phone, like, I'm not going to leave here. I want to go into their office to tell them that I was failed unjustifiably, because I felt like I was 100% ready and I was doing just fantastic. I didn't need to fail. Now, let me tell you something, guys. In this part, if you're going for driving tests, you don't tell anyone, because if you fail, so that you can manage yourself and cry your cry and, just tap yourself and say, we go again, So my first test, a number of people knew about it. But the second one, when I went for it, it was just me and my husband that knew about it, But somehow I told in few people, because I was inconsolable, because I felt like I was, wrongly failed for the test. And, so I didn't tell anyone. I just took it, I cried very well. It affected me a lot, because I felt it was not just, it wasn't good. So my husband just begged me, should he come and pick me from there? I shouldn't go inside. I shouldn't create a scene. I should just take it like that. He was just consoling me on the phone. For like 20 minutes, I sat in my car crying, and I just stayed there in the office. Like, what? The driving I've been doing for how long? It now reached this place now for me to get driver's license, and then you're saying that I failed 2 times. How much money am I going to put into this thing? It was just so bad, guys. And so I took a break. I'm like, we need to get an instructor. Perhaps there's really something I'm not getting right. And before I left there that day, I got the email also stating that I had failed and all the reasons. In fact, when I saw all the reasons that the guy listed, I'm like, this one is wickedness. Wickedness in high places. So we decided, that I should take my time this time around, find an instructor, let me really know if there's something that I'm not getting, because I can't imagine doing this exam the third time and not passing again. Kilo day. So we eventually got an instructor that booked us for like weeks later before they gave us a slot, and I did 2 lessons with the instructor. So the first lesson was very productive. I paid, I think, £54 for 1.5 hours. I'm like, that's a lot of money, man. Just for driving, Anyway, so we went on with the driving test. The guy was quite impressed. I'm like, you see, they failed me. I wasn't supposed to fail me, you see, because the guy was quite impressed. He was commending me, The only aspect he said I wasn't doing so good was my mirror checks, and that at every slight opportunity, instead of me to take off my leg from the the accelerator, I kept stepping on my brake. I'm like, that's how it is in, where I come from in Nigeria, because you have to think for the person who is driving. You don't expect anybody to be watchful. You've got to watch yourself. So the next thing, any car you see just coming, you just step on your brake so that you save yourself from being barged into and all of that. And so he corrected me. He was quite impressed. I did quite well. He corrected me on those things and it was good. I'm like, okay. A number of things that I didn't quite understand, like who has right of way at this place, who has right of way at this place. The fact that if you're slowing down, you've got to check your mirror, you've got to check your center mirror if you're slowing down, so you know that before you slow down, so you know that the car behind you is not just going to barge into you. You've got to, if you're indicating, you've got to check your side. It told me all of those things. I'm like, okay, that's what they want. It's all right. And so I did another tests, practice. And so I did the practice. So I did another practice, with the guy. It was for 1 hour and it took me to some places we did. And I was like, okay, good. I think I'm actually good to go. And these instructors, they are, if you keep going for lessons, they keep getting your money. I told my husband, I said, no, I'm not doing any other lesson until I got a date for tests, because I'm not ready to be sinking my money into tests, because I've gotten the things that I think I need. So, and then the guy kept calling. I kept saying, I'm not doing tests. I'm not doing practice for now, blah, 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 till I got a date. And so I got that fateful date, and I chatted up the instructor and he said he didn't have any space until after the date I had got. I'm like, well, but hard luck, I'm not going to move my test. I'm just going to go ahead with it. But guys, one thing I did that I must tell you that I didn't do before was practice so much. I went out on my own and practiced so very much for it. And then I went for the test. And here's a clip of me. My test was 2:30 and you won't believe I drove out of my house 12 o'clock. I kept driving around all the places I know they could tell me to go. I kept practicing all the things I'd done. It wasn't just that day. I did it previously, like 6 days before my test. I took it like my life depended on it, and then I went on ad for it. Here's a video of me, just before the test. I was quite tense and all, but so I'm here chilling, waiting for it to be time for me to go for my driving tests. By the way, this is my 3rd attempt, and by the grace of God is going to be my last attempt. I've done it twice in the past and I didn't pass, and I'm just trusting God that this time around I'm going to pass. I've got lots more confidence now. I've understood a lot of things I didn't quite understand before, and I'm just praying for a favorable instructor, because the previous instructor I had, the first instructor, was a very nice man. He made me feel at ease. But the second instructor I had, he was so tensed. He didn't make it go well at all. So I'm really trusting God for favor, because the Bible says even the heart of kings, no matter how horrible or whatever the examiner might be, the heart of kings is in the hands of the Lord, and he turns it wheresoever. And so I decree today that I will be favored with my examiner. I will be favored with the routes I will be taking to, because the first time, the thing that actually made me feel was because I'd never been to that road before. The markings on the road were not clear, and so I made a mistake of staying where I shouldn't have stayed. The road was completely strange. And so the second time I got to a roundabout, I didn't want to make that same mistake the first time of not being sure. And then I went on for the test, and as I was driving, I was watching the guy pressing. The guy noticed that I was watching him press that their tab. I'm like, Kilo Tunte, what are you pressing again? And then the guy saw that I was watching his hand, and then he adjusted the pad again closer to him and was, pressing like this. I'm like, hey. Anyway, I just heard in my spirit that no matter what he presses, you're going to pass. And so I just calmed down, and then I went on ahead with my test. It went well. The guy didn't have to say anything. I missed my way at some point and he said it's okay. I'm like, okay. That was the only thing he said, and I was happy. And so when we got to back to their office, I was still trying to say, let me not come and fail at the end of my test, you know. So I tried to still pack properly, you know, and he said, okay, so secure the car. So we've come to the end of your test, and I want to tell you that you passed. I'm like, you said what? And I busted into tears. Oh my God, I busted into tears, guys. I wept. I'm like, oh, it's my third attempt. It's my third attempt. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. It meant so much to me, guys. That test that I passed meant everything to me. And here's why. Because a friend told me about one of his friends, not a friend, a colleague told me about one of his friends who is, I think, Asian or something, who, you know, drove without a valid driver's license and was, you know, arrested. And when he eventually went to apply for his ILR after years, you know, of being in the UK, he was actually denied because he was told that he's not a law-abiding citizen. He, you know, he knows that it's illegal to drive without a valid driver's license, and he did, and so he was denied. And that, you know, took my apprehensiveness to another level. Like, no way, I need to get this thing right now. So grateful. I hope that if you're trying, you know, to pass your test, don't be discouraged. Check your mirrors like no man's business. Stretch that neck, but don't lose concentration. You know, do everything your instructor tells you to do. Now I realize my mistake was not having to have even gone through an instructor in the first place. Like, if I had gone through this instructor, I might not have failed twice before eventually passing the test. And so I want to implore you, go for a test at least twice or three. It depends on how fast you're able to catch up, you know, so that you can pass it at once. I know it's a lot of money, but it's worth it because, you know, I had to call my brother to say, now that I have passed my test, what other thing do I need to live in peace and, you know, happiness in this place? And he said, that's about it. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Praise God with me, guys. I passed my driving test. And this means so much to me. Anyway, that's the story about how I failed and eventually passed, you know, my driving test here in the UK. So that is to say that no matter how many times you failed, your day of success is at hand. Thank you guys for being a part of this video. If you've not liked, you've not shared, you've not subscribed or commented, guys, what are you waiting for? You want to tell me in the comment section what your own experience has been. If you've passed that first attempt, then I give you a big thumbs up because that's a big deal, you know. Or if you failed, or if you're still in the process, guys, I pray that God sees you through and you have your driver's license and you have your peace of mind and everything else that your soul desires. Thank you guys again. I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.